Greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we're talking about my Week 11 quarterback rankings for the 2020 fantasy football season. On today's episode, we're talking about all things related to the quarterback position, as we begin by talking about matchups at the position. We'll talk about which defenses are giving up the most points to opposing quarterbacks thus far this season on average in a 4-point per passing touchdown format. Then after that, of course, we'll talk about my top 16 quarterback rankings on the week. Before we begin, I want to thank you guys for your incredible support. Again, you guys have gotten me to this point with the incredible support down in the comment section, helping on Patreon, the Discord server, and all of that kind of stuff. I really do appreciate you guys. For those of you who haven't yet already, click that subscribe button. We are on our way to 35,000 subscribers. Again, we're making 2020 fantasy football content on the daily here. So for those of you who are interested, click the like button down below. Of course, comment down below. The Discord link in the description, all of that covered. I'm sure you guys know that I mention it every time, so we should be good to go. All right, so let's get into this, shall we? Let's start talking about some matchups at the quarterback position. I'm very excited about this week's list of players in the specific matchups that they're going to be in. It should be a lot of shootouts in my eyes. Hopefully the weather won't get in the way, of course, this week. So as we can see on the screen, the Atlanta Falcons are giving up the most points to opposing quarterbacks this season. That is unbelievable, considering the fact that Jameis Winston will have the privilege of playing against them twice in the next 3 weeks. They're giving up 2.4 passing touchdowns to opposing quarterbacks this season on average, basically because their secondary has been awful. Their run-stopping defense has been great all season long, but to be honest, in terms of stopping the pass, Jameis Winston and the New Orleans Saints should be able to take advantage of it. I'm excited about that. The Seattle Seahawks play later tonight against the Arizona Cardinals. Later in this episode, after I finish my top 16 quarterback rankings, I'll give you guys my prediction on the matter. But I think, of course, Kyler Murray, who has definitely produced against them earlier this season and has been on a complete hot streak as of late, is going to, potentially feast against them and have another big game for your fantasy purposes, of course, and potentially carry your team to the promised land as he has been doing all season long. The Jacksonville Jaguars giving up the third most points. Ben Roethlisberger, coming off the best game of his season with 4 passing touchdowns, will have the privilege of taking on that defense, giving up 2.1 passing touchdowns per week to opposing quarterbacks. A pretty good sign there as well. The New York Jets, they will have the privilege of taking on Justin Herbert and that offense that, of course, should be able to feast. I'm excited about Herbert. I'm not too excited about the haircut, but I guess we'll just have to see how that flows this upcoming week. The Buffalo Bills are in a bye week, so that matchup will not be able to take advantage of. Of course, the 49ers, the Giants, and the Bears are also on a bye week, just so those of you who aren't aware of that can now understand that those are the reason why we won't have Josh Allen on today's list or be taking advantage of said matchups. The Los Angeles Chargers, they'll take on Joe Flacco. I'm not really too interested in that. Cincinnati Bengals against Alex Smith. The Tennessee Titans taking on Lamar Jackson. That's great for him, of course. Having a 2 passing touchdown week last week could potentially continue with that momentum this upcoming week. The Arizona Cardinals playing against Russell Wilson. They've given up a fair share of points to Russell Wilson earlier this year, specifically in the matchup in which they had. But of course, other quarterbacks, specifically Josh Allen last week. The Las Vegas Raiders playing against the Kansas City Chiefs. They're giving up the 10th most points to quarterbacks, and I guarantee you Patrick Mahomes is going to increase that number to maybe tenfold perhaps this upcoming week, as he puts up a lot of points on that defense. Either way, to give you some extra perspective, we'll go ahead and talk about some of the tougher matchups this upcoming week at the quarterback position. Of course, the Indianapolis Colts will take on the Green Bay Packers. Both of these teams haven't given up a lot of points to opposing quarterbacks this season. That should be an interesting factor, especially considering how well Aaron Rodgers has played this year in comparison to the past. So maybe he's going to continue on his hot streak, or maybe he will find his kryptonite this week in Indianapolis. Or we'll have Tom Brady, who is coming off perhaps his best week of the season, playing against the Los Angeles Rams defense, who has rendered opposing quarterbacks practically worthless many times this season. I think they've only given up 3+ touchdowns twice this season to opposing quarterbacks, so it's going to be tough for Brady to have a huge game against them. Chicago Bears on a bye week. The Pittsburgh Steelers, obviously another one of these dominant defenses. The New England Patriots secondary, as we always know, have been pretty tough. And if I'm not mistaken, a couple weeks back, they went on a streak. I think it was week 6 through 8, in which they hadn't given up a passing touchdown to 3 consecutive quarterbacks. So again, their defense definitely a sound secondary. And then the Kansas City Chiefs, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Baltimore Ravens, other top-tier defenses on good teams that could force some troubles for opposing quarterbacks. Now that we've covered that, we can move on to our top 16 quarterback rankings of the week. Again, rankings are subject to change as it says above me. If you are looking for up-to-date rankings, you can hit up my Patreon. The link is down in the description. Otherwise, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, kickoff with Kirk. Every Sunday morning we live stream. I'll have updated top 16 quarterback rankings for you guys who are interested. All right, let's get into this, shall we? Starting off with my number one quarterback on the week, we have ourselves Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes has a great matchup against the Las Vegas Raiders. And in the last two games that we saw Patrick Mahomes play in week 8 and 9, prior to his bye week in week 10, my goodness, Patrick Mahomes has been unstoppable. In the last two games, he has thrown for 788 passing yards, 9 passing touchdowns, and only 0 interceptions. He has been unstoppable. He is on the path to truly potentially getting to a 50 passing touchdown season. If he continues on the trend of throwing for 3 to 4, maybe even 5 touchdowns in these given weeks, he honestly could get there. It may seem like it's out of his reach potentially, but I know what kind of talent he has. The matchups are really high scoring events between back and forth teams. I really do think that with the talent that surrounds him, he's very capable of doing so. But regardless, against the matchup this upcoming week, Las Vegas, the last time he played against the Las Vegas Raiders, 340 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, 21 rushing yards, and a rushing touchdown. I think he could once again drop another 30 bomb for your team and have himself a fantastic week. And that is why Patrick Mahomes is my number one quarterback. Number 2 is Kyler Murray, the guy that might end up being the fantasy MVP of the year. He is having a Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes-esque type season this upcoming season. And to be honest, it's mainly because of his rushing ability. Though last week, he had himself a fantastic week against the Buffalo Bills in terms of passing, 245 passing yards, a passing touchdown, 61 rushing yards, and 2 rushing touchdowns. His rushing yards and rushing touchdowns has been the biggest difference maker. Just to kind of give you guys some perspective, as of thus far this season, he has 604 total rushing yards and 10 total rushing touchdowns. If you went ahead and just took the yards on the ground and the rushing touchdowns on the ground and just isolated that and made Kyler Murray a running back, he would right now be the number 11 overall running back in fantasy with 120.4 fantasy points in a half PPR scoring form. I mean, it doesn't matter because I'm not counting receptions. Just pretty much attributed to the running game. He would basically be ahead of Antonio Gibson at this point. So just to kind of give you perspective as to how good he's been unstoppable on the ground. And really, Seattle wasn't able to stop them the last time they faced up against him either. Against Seattle, the last time he played against them, he had 67 rushing yards, a rushing touchdown, 360 passing yards, and 3 passing touchdowns. This is going to be a shootout between these two teams in the NFC West. I'm extremely excited about the potential between these two teams, and Kyler Murray should have himself a fantastic game tonight. We have ourselves Justin Herbert playing against the New York Jets. I've mentioned this before. The Jets, they give up a fair share of points to opposing quarterbacks, and Justin Herbert has been on fire this season. I mean, since week 4 of the 2020 fantasy football season, Justin Herbert has been the number 2 overall quarterback in a 4-point per passing touchdown format in terms of total points. He's coming off of a performance in which he had 187 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, and a rushing touchdown against the Miami Dolphins defense, which of course we know is one of the better in the National Football League. Definitely have good corners for coverage and send a lot of pressure at young quarterbacks to definitely make them uncomfortable. That's what they're going to do to Drew Lock this week. But Justin Herbert's able to sit in the pocket, deliver the ball, and score ample amount of fantasy points regardless. He has been on a streak in which he's getting high yardage counts and getting upwards of 2 to 3 passing touchdowns per game. That in itself, so valuable. The fact that he's also an elusive runner and can get himself yards on the ground, touchdowns on the ground, just an extra aspect that we didn't really anticipate, which is really helping him take the next step in terms of overall fantasy productivity. He is my number 3 on the week in a fantastic matchup. We have ourselves Russell Wilson as our number 4 quarterback. Again, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, Kyler Murray versus Russell Wilson tonight, this matchup should be a back and forth shootout. Just talking about what Russell Wilson did against Arizona a couple weeks back, 388 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, unfortunately threw 3 interceptions in that game, one that pretty much sealed the deal for his team, but also had 84 rushing yards against the Arizona Cardinals. Tonight, he probably won't have Chris Carson, he'll have Carlos Hyde, but even then, if the running game falls apart, we have the ability of Russell Wilson to run the ball and determine the plays on the field with his own legs and at least give his team another shot of winning this game. In my opinion, Russell Wilson, as of last 3 to 4 weeks, hasn't been the greatest. In the past 4 weeks, he's turned over the ball 7 times through the air. And that, yes, it may be a concern, especially considering he's playing against a guy like Patrick Peterson, who is a ball hawk. The question remains, which Russell Wilson are we going to get? Are we going to get the one that showed up against the Los Angeles Rams and threw for 0 passing touchdowns against that defense? Or are we going to get the one that comes out, competes against Arizona, competes against Buffalo, and really puts up high numbers? I'm thinking we're going to see a little bit of a resurgence from Russell Wilson this upcoming week, and specifically tonight with DK Lockett locked in. We're going to be good as our number 4 quarterback there. We have Ben Roethlisberger as our number 5 playing against Jacksonville. We mentioned it before. They give up a lot of points to opposing quarterbacks. That shouldn't be a surprise. That defense is definitely a mess. But the fact that Ben Roethlisberger is coming off a week in which he's had the most passing touchdowns of this season, 4 total, with 0 interceptions, 333 passing yards. That's back-to-back weeks with over 300 passing yards and 3 passing touchdowns. And they're continuing to lean upon the passing game. You know, James Conner's kind of been a little bit of a underwhelming performer as of the last couple of weeks in terms of getting yardage on the ground, having averaged nearly about 3 yards per carry as of the last couple of weeks. This team obviously has to go ahead and late in games pass the ball. They were up about 20-25 points against the Cincinnati Bengals, and they're still throwing passing touchdowns against that team. Of course, it's a division rival. You want to send a message to Joe Burrow, hey, this is still our division. You may be the young gunslinger, but we've still got this thing on lock. I get it. But at the same time, if you're not able to run the ball late in games, then how do we expect them to, run the ball successfully against Jacksonville? I'm thinking Ben Roethlisberger could have himself another game in which he's having over 300 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns. Could be a very nice performance from him this upcoming week. Our number 6 for this upcoming week is Lamar Jackson, and I'm pretty happy about what he was able to accomplish this last week. Having himself 55 rushing yards on top of 2 passing touchdowns and almost 250 passing yards. That total productivity is fantastic. That's what we want to see from Lamar Jackson. On top of it, he has one of the easier matchups at the position this week. The Tennessee Titans give up the 6th most points to opposing quarterbacks this season. On top of it, they give up the 8th most points to opposing running backs. Considering Lamar Jackson, in my eyes, is a hybrid, he's running the ball the most out of all the backs in the Baltimore Ravens offense, and he's able to throw the ball at a consistent level. As long as he is getting more utilization based on the fact that the Tennessee Titans give up a lot of points to tight ends, great for Mark Andrews, considering he's the number 1 target. They give up a lot of points to quarterbacks, so maybe if in fact he wants to find Willie Snead, Marquise Brown, perfect. And they give up a lot of points to the running back position. He likes to run the ball a lot, about 10 times per game. The ability for an upside rushing touchdown is always there. It just seems to me like the Tennessee Titans, they've been struggling all season long, and Lamar Jackson at this point really needs to reestablish himself. Since week 2, quarterbacks have at least scored 2 touchdowns against the Tennessee Titans defense per week. That's a great stat, and we're going to continue to rely upon LJ as we continue. Our number 7 for this upcoming week is Aaron Rodgers, and I mentioned this a little bit last week, but I'll go ahead and highlight it once again. Aaron Rodgers is playing out of his mind. He is having an incredible season. In 9 games thus far this season, he has passed for 26 passing touchdowns. Last season alone, in 2019, in the full 16-game slate that he played, he only threw for 26 passing touchdowns. He's already tied up his mark from last year. You can, just off of that, really understand how much significantly better Aaron Rodgers is this year. And it's not because his offense around him has changed. They've literally brought in no talent. They tried to bring in Devin Funchess. He opted out this season. So again, the Packers are the same offense. But Aaron Rodgers, after drafting Jordan Love, got a little bit of a fire under his butt. And he's getting really going as of late and establishing, hey, I'm not going anywhere. I am the starting quarterback of this team. I'm dominating defenses, and nobody can stop me. Even though they were a little slow and lethargic against the Jacksonville Jaguars and have a tough matchup this upcoming week against the Indianapolis Colts, I'm not worried about him at all. He has been on fire, throwing for 3 to 4 passing touchdowns in many games this season already. With Devontae Adams out there, the potential return of Allen Lazard, I'm very excited about their potential. Aaron Rodgers as my number 7 should be a great play. Moving on to our number 8, we have ourselves Matty Ice, Matt Ryan of the Atlanta Falcons, coming off of a bye week, taking on the New Orleans Saints defense. Now, I've mentioned it multiple times this season already. I do not trust the New Orleans Saints secondary, and I think Matt Ryan definitely has an opportunity this upcoming week to take advantage of it. He plays them twice in the next 3 weeks, and with their defense, the Atlanta Falcons secondary themselves giving up a lot of points, and Jameis Winston being a quarterback who can definitely put up points in bunches, I think this could be a back and forth shootout between 2 teams in the NFC South, which I love to see because, again, Everybody benefits from this, whether it's wide receivers, tight ends, running backs, quarterbacks. Everybody benefits from a shootout in the NFC South. So the question remains, what can we potentially expect from Matt Ryan? I went back and looked at his productivity against the New Orleans Saints last season in 2019, and he had a benchmark of at least 2 passing touchdowns against that team in the 2 games that he played against them. Great. We have a benchmark, 4 touchdowns in 2 games. That's what we could potentially expect, 2 per game. Good. That's great to see. But I think that a lot of people are kind of fooled from the fact that the New Orleans Saints have played very well in the past 2 weeks, specifically against Tom Brady in week 9. It was a bit of a debacle. That entire thing was just blown out of proportions, and the game got out of hand very quickly. Nick Mullins, of course, didn't get enough offensive opportunities as their special teams pretty much drew the game away as they muffed 2 punts. One was off the shoulder and the other one was a muff. So again, they could have had more opportunities and Nick Mullins could have scored. But prior to week 9, the 7 quarterbacks that they faced earlier this season all combined for 20 total touchdowns against the New Orleans Saints defense. So again, nearly averaging 3 touchdowns per game against this defense. I think quarterbacks definitely succeed against New Orleans. Matt Ryan won't be out of the norm. I think he'll definitely be able to succeed as my number 8 quarterback. Number 9 is Deshaun Watson. Been playing pretty well. Unfortunately, this past week, due to the weather concerns, the lightning, the constant rain in Cleveland, it wasn't a great game for him overall. He did end up throwing for 163 yards and 1 passing touchdown, 36 rushing yards. This upcoming week, they take on the New England Patriots defense. And just looking at what Lamar Jackson and Joe Flacco both produced against them, Lamar Jackson, 2 passing touchdowns, got himself 55 rushing yards. Joe Flacco threw for 3 passing touchdowns against that secondary. I know Stephon Gilmore missed that week, but again, those aren't the 2 greatest passing quarterbacks in the National Football League. I think Deshaun Watson is a better passer than both those guys. And this upcoming week, with the weapons that he has surrounding him, Randall Cobb, Will Fuller, Brandon Cooks, Duke Johnson in the backfield, a slew of tight ends that any of them could potentially score on a weekly basis, I think Deshaun Watson is in a pretty good advantageous spot this week against the New England Patriots defense, who, again, even though their defense has been great, their offense has been slow. They are a running team. It will take them a while to score, and if and when they do, it'll give more and more opportunities for Deshaun Watson to have himself extra possessions, come back in the game, and have some garbage time potentially. I'm excited about his potential. He's my number 9. Number 10 is Tom Brady. All right, so the stat that I was alluding to a little bit earlier when I was talking about matchups, Tom Brady, even though he's coming off a week of 341 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns, and 1 rushing touchdown, 4 total touchdown game, he takes on the Los Angeles Rams. Of course, I myself am very aware that he beat them in the Super Bowl a couple years back, and boy, does that hurt my soul. But the thing is, Tom Brady hasn't played this good of a defense in a while. I know the New Orleans Saints really did a number on him, but that isn't one of the better defenses in National Football Leagues in terms of playing against quarterbacks. This season alone, the Los Angeles Rams defense has rendered 5 different quarterbacks to pass 0 passing touchdowns in their matchups against their defense. So again, they can force pretty much anybody to disappear. I mean, just look at Russell Wilson last week. Pretty much had no presence in the game. Threw 2 interceptions, didn't have a passing touchdown, and was ultimately worthless. The 2 quarterbacks that has produced against this team, Jimmy Garoppolo and Josh Allen, again, those are few and far between. Otherwise, this defense has been locked down. That being said, I do think that Tom Brady and the weapons that he has that honestly surround him with the offensive line give him a lot of time, a lot of potential to have an upside week. Even though this is a tougher matchup, I think 2 touchdowns and maybe a third is in line for Tom Brady. I think this should be a back and forth nice matchup between these 2 teams. I'm excited about the potential this week. We have ourselves number 11, Joe Burrow. I know Joe Burrow does not play well against very good AFC teams. When he is challenged by tough defenses, specifically Indianapolis, Baltimore, and Pittsburgh, those are 3 teams that he's going to have to face multiple times throughout the rest of his career, and it's definitely been a struggle for him thus far. That being said, he takes on the Washington football team. I personally don't think that the Washington football team is one of these dominant defenses. Again, Matt Stafford last week with a torn thumb, with ligament in his thumb, his UCL completely gone, or it was half gone, regardless. I'm over-exaggerating. You get the point. With it pretty much torn, was able to throw for 276 passing yards and 3 passing touchdowns against that defense. I think Joe Burrow, with the talent that surrounds him, T. Higgins getting more momentum, Tyler Boyd there, and of course, Giovanni Bernard here and there for a couple of dump-offs. This offensive line getting more healthy, potentially will have his right and left tackle back this week. I think Joe Burrow could end up putting up a pretty good performance. Again, he played against Pittsburgh, did not turn over the ball in terms of throwing an interception. And I think as he continues to mature and learn, we'll be able to take advantage of these matchups, specifically against Washington and going forward in some of the easier matchups he has. We have Tua as our number 12 quarterback. Here's the thing. The Denver matchup is a little too juicy in my eyes. Again, Matt Ryan as of late had 284 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns against that defense. Justin Herbert had 278 passing yards and 3 passing touchdowns against that defense. So Tua should be in line for a great week. He's coming off of back-to-back games of 2 passing touchdowns. I think the potential of getting a third is definitely there, considering the Denver offense could honestly disappear, giving Tua and this Miami Dolphins offense more and more opportunities to not only score through the passing game, but get down the field and get Tua in more advantageous positions and get himself extra yards. Again, he only threw for 169 passing yards last week against the Los Angeles Chargers defense. That secondary is one of the better ones in the National Football League, especially with Casey Hayward there. But again, Denver, their secondary, Callaway, Boye, they haven't been great. So to be honest, Tua should be a pretty good play as my number 12 overall quarterback. Now we have Jameis Winston as our number 13. I don't want to go ahead and just give Jameis the crown of being one of the better quarterbacks in the league, even though he literally finished as a number 2 overall quarterback in fantasy last year in a 4-point per passing touchdown league. My concern is that there is a potential that Jameis Winston could come out and be a little bit of a system quarterback, not want to turn over the ball, hand off the ball a lot, dump it off to Alvin Kamara, and just become like Drew Brees, where he doesn't score a lot of points because this offense is just handing it off to Kamara on the 1-yard line. There is always a possibility of that. But Jameis Winston in his past has always been a gunslinger. He's been a guy that wants to throw the ball deep, wants to air it out, and wants to have these back and forth shootouts. Even though turning over the ball has been a part of his history, maybe we can go ahead and get past that. In the 2 matchups in which he played against Atlanta last year, he had 5 total passing touchdowns. That is exciting for me, and especially considering, Drew Lock just a couple weeks back had 313 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, 47 rushing yards, and a rushing touchdown against the Atlanta defense. I mean, if Drew Lock can score that much against them, I think Jameis Winston can certainly have himself a pretty good week this week. Cam Newton's my number 14. Again, we've mentioned this all the time. Houston is one of the worst defenses in the NFL. Not only can they not stop the run, but they can't really stop the pass either. I think Cam Newton, with Jacoby Myers being his number 1 receiving option, could end up finding some yardage there for sure. But besides that, Cam Newton has 9 rushing touchdowns in the 8 games that he's played this season. He's guaranteed to have an extra influx of 6 points on top of at least 40 to 50 rushing yards. So that in itself, a 10-point boost on top of the fact that he'll at least have 200 passing yards, maybe a passing touchdown. I think his upside's really up there. Unfortunately, in the last couple of weeks, his passing yardage hasn't been the greatest in some of these contests, especially last week, only 118. But again, they were up early and they had to go ahead and just sit back and relax and just run the ball. But again, I think as of late, Cam Newton's found himself more viability in terms of fantasy productivity because of those rushing touchdowns. As long as he stays consistent there, should be a great option. Against Dallas, Kirk Cousins will have himself another advantage here. Kirk Cousins has thrown 5 passing touchdowns in the last 2 weeks. Dallas, they themselves have allowed 21 touchdowns to opposing quarterbacks this season in 9 games. So again, seems like a great matchup. Unfortunately, if in fact we see Dalvin Cook take over this game, it could be a little bit of a struggle, but Kirk Cousins is coming off of a game in which he threw for 292 passing yards and 2 passing touchdowns against Chicago's secondary. That is no joke. That is a fantastic defense. So again, I think Kirk Cousins, who is getting a little bit more consistency and not having to be the relied upon offensive threat for the Vikings, as they've relied upon, of course, Dalvin Cook to set the tempo. I think Kirk Cousins playing off of the play action has been a far better quarterback. I'm excited about his potential this week against Dallas in a pretty good matchup. We have Derek Carr as the last quarterback I wanted to mention. Derek Carr, the last time he played against KC in week 5, that offense scored 40 points, and he was responsible for 347 passing yards and 3 passing touchdowns. I know he's coming off of a week in which he didn't throw for a passing touchdown, but it's mainly because that defense just couldn't stop the run. Denver was not capable of stopping the run. Josh Jacobs, Devontae Booker just imposed their will, dominated on the ground, and honestly kind of filtered out the potential of Derek Carr potentially throwing for a touchdown later in the game. There just wasn't enough back and forth there. So it obviously led in the direction of Derek Carr, just run the ball, run the clock out. Let's play against KC next week. Should be an exciting one. I think he'll definitely have to pass the ball in order to keep up with Patrick Mahomes. should be an exciting game. All right, those are my top 16 quarterback rankings of the week. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Make sure you click the like button down below, subscribe to the channel. Tomorrow, we'll talk about our hidden gems. My prediction tonight, we have ourselves the Arizona Cardinals playing against the Seattle Seahawks. I think the Seattle Seahawks will have a bounce-back game tonight. They're going to win. That's my prediction on the week. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.